Well, defining the Parsi identity is not a simple issue. It's very complex. We're a community of some 110,000 all over the world. Uh, at the last Indian census, there were some 56,267 Parsis registered in India. The community is diminishing in India. But on the other hand, one needs to take cognizance of the fact that a lot of our young people are migrating and now live abroad, and therefore they have children abroad and so forth. So we're in a transitional phase where India, which was very strong and powerful and had the largest number of Parsis in the world, today we still have the largest Parsi Irani Zartushti population in the world, based in India, the majority of whom live in Mumbai. But to understand Parsi identity, I think one has to realize that here we are a group of people that arrived in India just over 1,000 years ago from ancient Iran because of the turmoil that happened in Iran, where uh, Zoroastrianism ceased to be the state religion, and a small group of Parsis had to uh, wander around for maybe about 200 years or so, and then they decided to set sail and come to India. The story of Parsi arrival in India is again interesting. The earliest document that we have dates back to 1599, where Mohammad Kekubat Sanjana wrote the Kisse Sanjan. And in this document in Persian poetry, it lists the five conditions that the Hindu king Jadavrana demanded of the Parsi migrants. Uh, the first condition was explain your religion. The second condition was lay down your weapons, whatever we had brought. The third condition was that our men and women folk should speak Gujarati, the national language in that region. The fourth condition was that our women should wear the sari Gujarati style. And the fifth condition was that our Parsi wedding should happen after the sun sets. Why the fifth condition was demanded, nobody really knows, because in the Hindu system, one gets married according to the Murat, according to the auspicious time. And therefore, why this condition was demanded by the Hindu king Jadavrana, no scholar is really quite sure about. But what is interesting is that the Parsis have kept this promise 1,000 years later. In India, most Parsi weddings happen after the sun sets, unlike, say, an initiation ceremony, which has to happen before the sun sets. So I think it also indicates a very important quality that the religion has, which therefore identifies the Parsi in a sense, which is that we have a strong theology, which is unique, which is different to, I would say, all the other major religions of the world. And that theology is something that I think gives, if you like, the spirit with which the community has over the last 1,000 years unfolded in India. And what I would like to say in defense of Zoroastrianism is that the theology is wonderfully practical, very modern, very 21st century, contrary to what people think, given the fact that we're considered to be the oldest revealed religion in the world. Our theology starts with the recognition of Ahura Mazda, the Lord of Wisdom. As you can quickly understand, wisdom is central to our lives today. The knowledge is central to our lives today. And therefore, in Zarathustra's hymns, very, very truncated and very difficult to comprehend, his gathas, he basically highlights the fact of how important Ahura Mazda is and how, as a Zartushti, one has to link to some of the key principles which the gathas outline. So, for example, in the gathas, there's a reference to the good mind, Vahumana. There's a reference to the highest truth, Ashavahishta. There's a reference to sovereignty and strength, Kshatravirya. There's a reference to Spenta Mighty, which is devotion and piety. There's a reference to perfection and wholeness, which is Horvatat. And then the last Amesha Spenta is Amiratat, which is immortality or undyingness. Now, why am I giving you this background? Because if you think about it, for a person to live in the 21st century, you have to have knowledge. In whatever you do in life, you have to have knowledge. To access that knowledge, you have to use your mind, Vahumana. When knowledge and the good mind come together, you're then able to process that knowledge. That's the concept of truth. And when, again, the concept of wisdom or knowledge, the good mind and truth come together, then you develop a sense of commitment, a sense of conviction, a sense of power. That's Shatravirya. With power, that has to always be balanced with devotion and piety, Spenta mighty. And when you basically do things with devotion and piety, you're going to do things well, which is Harvata, perfection. And if you do things well, it's going to be remembered, and that's immortality. Now, we think about it that in the complex world we live in, here are principles which apply to whatever you do in life. So, for example, you're making a documentary, you have to have knowledge about what you want to do, you have to use your good mind, you have to follow a certain path of truth, you have to have the energy to make a documentary, you have to have the fire in your belly to, in a sense, with devotion, pursue this project. And if you pursue this project, you're going to do it well, perfection. And if you do it well, it will be remembered, immortality. I submit to you, which other tradition gives you, if you like, management principles through the focus of religion, through the focus of theology, basically allowing you to lead a better life? Now, importantly in Zoroastrianism, spirituality is not renouncing the world. It's not flagellation of the body. It's not an asceticism. It's not monasticism. It's living the full life, generating wealth, and then sharing it. So one of the things that I think established Parsi identity, because of this basic ethos of eat, drink, and be merry, within moderation, I hasten to add. This ethos, I think, has gone into the concept of identity, because in the last 500 years or so, particularly when European traders came to India, the Portuguese, the French, and then the British, the Parsis were able to, in a sense, interact with them, basically understand where they came from, and were able to trade with them, as the result of which they developed vast fortunes. And once the British came, yes, the Parsi identity wanted to, in a sense, link on to the British identity, and often you have Parsis who are more British than the British. But importantly, what it did do is that it brought education to the community. So we were the first group of people to go to English-speaking schools. We were the first group of people to go to universities set up by the British as the colonizers out here. So there were many, many plus points that happened during the 18th and 19th century, where Parsi entrepreneurship took on a very important kind of role in terms of industries, in terms of interacting with the British, and as a result of which this brought great wealth to the community. If it comes to the identity, we have always maintained an identity literally going back to early times, so much so that in various genetic studies that I've been involved with, we can identify the Y chromosome of Parsi man literally going back to the 10th century. So there has been, if you like, a racial sort of link that has continued from when we came. We have tried to maintain our identity by not, in a sense, encouraging intermarriage, etc. It has happened progressively more now than it did, say, 100 years ago. But importantly, because of the religion and because of the culture that Parsis adopted, we've been able to preserve an identity which one would loosely refer to as the Parsi identity. From a legal point of view, Justice Dava and Beeman defined what a Parsi is: somebody born of two Parsi parents, somebody born of a Parsi father, establishing patrilineality, which is part of the tradition, and those who came in the 18th and 19th century, namely the Iranis. So this was what was, by way of an obiter dicta, statement established in 1905, 1906 by the famous High Court case that took place in Mumbai. So that, if you like, has always been the legal parameter on which the Parsi identity is focused from a legal point of view. Importantly, from the point of view of culture, we developed and started speaking Gujarati and then developed our own Parsi Gujarati, where we have words coming in from Persian, we have words coming in from Dari. We have developed a sense of humor unique to the Parsi community. identified as Parsi humor. That humor not only is reflected in plays and Parsi Gujarati nataks, for example, it Parsi identity then moved into a lifestyle, the lifestyle of how we lived. If you look at, if you go to some of our Parsi villages, no longer villages today, but they were villages then, the kind of architecture that developed, where one can identify and say this is Parsi architecture. If you look at furniture, there's definitely aspects of Parsi furniture that we have. So all these things, in a sense, came together to give us, if you like, our cultural identity. It's not that we did not interact with the other people living amongst us, that is, the Hindus, the Christians, the Muslims, but we certainly tried to maintain our identity as best as we could, for the simple reason that identity for us is very important, because it's only the Parsis who have maintained this religion for over 3,000 years, a point that very few people seem to understand. Now, as the Parsis prospered in the 18th, 19th, and 20th centuries, a number of fire temples are built all over India, mainly in Maharashtra and Gujarat. The maximum number of fire temples are in Mumbai. So religiosity also grew with the fact that the Parsi identity became stronger. We were able to deal with other people from a position of strength, as versus from the position of being a minuscule minority, which we've always been. And so I think identity must be, in a sense, looked at from the point of view of Parsi culture and from the point of view of the religion. But in my view, the religion is very, very central. It's because of the religion that we've been able to maintain the Parsi identity. It is weakening now with secularism that has come in a big way, with many of our kids going abroad, many of our kids living abroad now. So westernization has hit the community in a very big way. And so just as westernization helped us to educate ourselves and therefore generate wealth with the different professions Parsis excelled in, whether it be law, whether it be accountancy, engineering, architecture, science, you name it, the Parsis have been at the forefront of this as far as India is concerned. But what it did do is westernization has had a damaging effect on the ethnicity of the community. And therefore, in a sense, though westernization brought great dividends to the community, I think the Parsis have over-westernized in some respects, and I'm a product of that, I hasten to add, but as a result of which, today, the religion has taken some sort of a beating, where what has happened is that as the world becomes more and more secular, it's very difficult for the Parsis to maintain their identity, and therefore Parsis over the last 100 years have been knocking on the doors of other traditions. Christianity initially was very popular, so Parsi children knew the Bible better than them having read the Gathas of Zarathustra. But also what did play an important part is, as India is a beautiful secular country, certain traditions, non-Zoroastrian traditions, started to enter the Parsi world. And therefore, I would say to you that the concept of Sai Baba, for example, the different Babas that exist in India, theosophy that came to India, all these sort of fringe movements have had some sort of, in my view, damaging effect on the Parsi community, because at the end of the day, as most human beings, we want to live well, we want to have enough money to enjoy a good lifestyle. So the attitude of the Parsis today is often, we must be secular, we can't be communal, because the concept of being communal is seen as an infra-dig kind of image. And this to me is rather sad. I think to be communal in the right sense, to me makes much more sense than to just say we are communal and therefore that's negative. Of course, communality, the Indian context, has had a damaging effect because you have the different caste systems in India, and therefore the general ethos of Indian education is we mustn't be communal, we must be secular. And the Parsis jumped onto this bandwagon to become secular, where they generated wealth and where you have huge companies like the Tatas, the Godrejes, the Mistree family, and so forth. But under the guise of being secular, they've forgotten that we still have to look after the community, because everyone in the community is not the best and the brightest. We do have to look after our middle age, we do have to look after our old people, and so on and so forth. So identity in that sense has taken a beating, because many Parsis now can often quote you from the Bhagavad Gita and from originally from the Bible and from various other modern religious stories, as versus quoting from our own sources. So that, in a sense, has affected the community. So today, when plays are written about Parsis by Parsis, they have a very secular approach. Communalism is turned into a kind of joke. In the old days, when plays were written, it very much promoted Parsi culture. The Parsi culture being of a woman being dominant, of the man being henpecked, and quite honestly, that is something that continues to exist in the community at a very subliminal level. It's not something that's talked about. So from my point of view, I would say to you that the concept of identity, which is what you're trying to focus on, has undergone great change over a period of time. And therefore, to focus and say, what is the Parsi identity today, is a very difficult question to, in a nutshell, answer. I think we have to take on board Parsi identity includes the theology, includes our lifestyle, includes the fact that where we live, we have adopted certain customs. It takes on board, for example, film music, Indian film music, which many Parsis today enjoy, whereas 100 years ago, most of our young people were brought up on classical Western music. So these are the sort of changes that have taken place over a period of time. So we have those who today at a wedding or at an outdoor ceremony or at a Parsi function, invariably it's Hindi music, film music, which dominates, which somehow attracts people, which makes Parsis dance and so on and so forth. And I think the same thing would not happen if you put Western classical music for Parsis to enjoy and basically have fun. So as far as identity is concerned, we do have a lifestyle, we do have a way of life, which is a Parsi way of life. We do have a particular kind of focus on cars. So, for example, if a car has to be sold, and if you say it's a Parsi-driven, Parsi-owned car, it seems to have some sort of value. But importantly, I think, given the multiplicity of everything that is in around us, we still have a beautiful Parsi brand identity.